Hi guys, so you've been hearing the granny square stitch, so I'm going to show you how to make your granny square stitch in this video. And for this we're going to be using the 4.5mm hook. You can use any hook of your choice, and I'm using the milk cotton yarn as well. You can use any yarn of your choice. Just follow the steps and you'll get it right. So let's begin. We're starting with a magic ring.
Now, if you don't know how to make the magic ring, I have a video on that. Please check my previous post.
And we chain 3. So this chain 3 stands for our first double crochet stitch. So we're going to work in 2 more double crochet stitch. Now for the granny square stitch, we work in clusters of 3 double crochet stitches. So this is our first double crochet stitch, and we'll make a chain. For this first row, we're going to be working in 4 clusters. So this is my second cluster, 2, 3. Now that's my second cluster. I chain 1. For our third cluster, 1, 2, 3. That's our third cluster. Chain 1 and make the final cluster. We chain 1. Now that's our fourth cluster. So to close up this ring, we're going to pull on this tail. And to end this row, we'll slip stitch into the edge of the first 3 chains we made. Here. Look at this chain here. We'll slip stitch into this to close up the first row. Now this is our first row for the granny square. Now to work in the second row, we're going to slip stitch our way into the first chain that we made, and that first chain is here, this chain. So we slip stitch into the first top of the first double crochet and slip stitch into this. Now we are at our first corner. We'll chain 3 to start the second row. This 3 stands as our first double crochet, and then we go in with 2 more double crochet. Now this is our first cluster on the second row, and this is the first chain 1 we made. Remember, the total of chain 1 in the first row is 4, so that 4 is supposed to be the corners, the foundation corners for this granny square. So for each corner, you're going to make double clusters into it. So we chain 1 and go back into the same spot and make another cluster. Now you don't chain one, you just go for the next chain one space and walk in another corner. 1, 2, 3. This is the chain one space. One, 2, 3. Chain one, walk in another cluster into the same spot. 1, 2, 3. We don't chain one after this cluster. We go to the next chain one space and walk in another corner. Like I said, for each corner you walk in double clusters. 2, 3. Chain one, and for each double clusters you separate with a chain one. 1, 2, 3. Now we don't chain, we go into the next corner. 1, 2, 3. This is our next corner here. One, 2, 3. Chain. 1, 2, 3. So this is the end of our second row, and to finish it up we'll slip stitch into the top of this 3 chains we made at the beginning of the row, and that is it for our second row. Now to get to the third row, we're going to slip stitch into the top of this first double crochet and then into this first corner. For each time you want to start a new row, you find your way into a corner and then you chain 3 as usual. This chain 3 is our first double crochet, and we're starting in a corner. You're going to be starting in a corner for each row. Now for each corner, remember I said you're going to walk in double clusters, separating them with a chain. This is our first cluster, chain and make your second cluster. Now the difference between the second row and the third row now is that for the third row you have a space before a corner. Now for each space you're going to put in a cluster. On each space that is not a corner, you put in a cluster. That's it. And then the next space we have is a corner, so we're going to be working in double clusters there. Chain 1, this is not a corner, so we just put in a cluster. Remember, there is no chain separating any cluster that is not in a corner. This is a corner, so we're going to be making double clusters in it. Chain to separate the double cluster. This is not a corner, so we make just a cluster in it. This is our final corner, so we'll make our double clusters into it. Chain. And we have one more space here that is not a corner. We'll make a cluster into it. That brings us to the end of row 3, and we close off by slip stitching into the top of this 3 chains we made. And that is it for row 3. For row 4, we slip stitch our way into the first corner. And we're in the first corner. We start with a 3 chain. That is our first double crochet stitch. So for the granny square stitch, this is basically what you do till you get to your desired size of the square. This is still not a corner, so as you keep moving into different rows, you keep getting more spaces with clusters that are not corners. So this is a corner. We make a double cluster. So I've gotten to the end of this row, and to end it, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of this chain, 3 chains that I started with, slip stitch into the next double crochet, and then into the corner. That's how we end the row. Now to start the next row, we chain 3. as your first double crochet, and you work in double clusters into this corner. My first cluster, chain, and my second. Yeah. Yeah. So for every space you put in a cluster, for every space you put in a cluster, for every corner you put in double clusters, and that is how your granny square pattern, your granny square stitch is done. So that's how your granny square stitch is done, and you keep walking round and round till you get the desired size you want. So let me know if you want me to show you how to alternate colors in the granny square in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Bye.